So to no surprise of anybody, Ian Garry doesn't care what you think. And neither did Michael Jordan, neither did Kobe Bryant, neither did Allen Iverson, and just to name a few, obviously I'm just delving into basketball names, but very prominent in the way that they, let's say, displayed their insanely competitive prowess. And this is Ian Garry in a nutshell. So you could say that Leon Edwards kicked him out because he was wrong for the culture and this and that. You know what? You're 100% right about that. Because you know what? Not all gym cultures are created equal, you know? So, just remember, one of the things that's really important to understand about Ian Garry is that he is unique. Just like that car that I just showed you right now. If you didn't see the car that I showed you, I believe it was one of my neighbors' Lamborghini. So it's important to understand that not everybody is the same. Not everybody is the same caliber of, let's say, even cars or products and things of that nature. Now, in the world of professional fighting, where we put rankings and names on certain people and what they are worth, I think it's quite fair to say that, once again, not everybody is created equal in a sense of the competitive architecture that you have in the world of prize fighting and among other combat sports such as wrestling, boxing, jiu-jitsu, Muay Thai, lethweight. Now, ever becoming popular, the bare-knuckle boxing fights that you see going on, both in MMA bare-knuckle and boxing bare-knuckle, along with lethweight and a whole bunch of other sports that you would not believe would exist out there, just to make some kind of excuse as to say this is fighting. But nonetheless, Ian Garry, he's unique. Now, he's not the type of guy, in all honesty, that I would want to go and hang out with, right? That's just the true-to-God honesty about everything. And he's not your cup of tea. Not everybody is your cup of tea. Some people come across as a little bit more rude for you. Some people come across as a little bit too calm for you. And wherever type of spectrum you sort of fall under, man, I gotta tell you, either way, you're going to be annoyed at one or two of those characteristics. So why not be yourself while you're in the process? Well, you look at Ian Garry, he's doing exactly that. What is he doing? He's doing exactly what he feels is necessary for him to get to the top. And guess what? Right now, we are in a fight week of UFC 296, right? This is on a Saturday right now, where Song Yadong is taking on Gutierrez, right? Fight night, just a week before UFC 296. And what is prominent about this particular week is that Ian Garry has managed to steal the headlines. He's not the champion like Leon Edwards. He's not the proven pay-per-view star like Colby Covington. But what he is an undefeated Irish prospect that has the blessings of Conor McGregor. And I gotta tell you guys, has a manager that, quite frankly, for better or worse, really knows how to stir things up in the industry. And I'm talking about, in specifically, his wife, Layla. And guess what? This is not something that I really wanted to bring up. It's not my style to bring up people's lives and families in MMA or anything like that. But in this particular case, it's so in your face that if you're an MMA content creator or you follow the sport or cover the sport in some capacity, you can't help but talk about it to a certain degree and how it affects Ian Garry in the slightest, whether it would be his technique or whether it would be his marketability. Now, in a marketability sense, this is a woman that will literally do anything for clout, and that's just being honest in every way that I can really put it. Well, what is the evidence of that? She tried to get Ian Garry to fight Khamzat at an elevator back in UFC 273 fight week in Jacksonville. All for the clout. By the way, in an elevator while Khamzat was there with his mother-in-law, who, by the way, full disclosure so that you can really understand the severity of this, or not the severity, but sort of the magnitude of the environment, was that Khamzat's mom was a hijabi, or daughter, mother-in-law was a hijabi, right? Somebody that wore a hijab. So you would imagine how it would look if, let's say, Ian Garry was to attack a Muslim fighter. And by the way, I don't think that would go well for Ian Garry, and rightfully so. That's the reason why he refused to do it, and the reason why Layla called him the P word. But guess what? Had he done that, could you imagine that he would have catapulted into the next stratosphere in terms of public relations and attention and marketability? Imagine you get into a street fight with Khamzat, that is gold. And then somewhere down the line, you can set up a matchup, considering he's projected to be the champion, and there you have it. Then you have a matchup in your hands, just like what he has going on with Sean Strickland. But in this case, guess what? Sean Strickland is the champion, so he is the bigger guy, the ace side of this whole equation, and yet he managed to somehow poke at the chest of Ian Garry. So, here we are. They know what they are doing when it comes to getting the attention, because look at this. This is UFC 296, and they dominate the headlines. We got Colby Covington taking on Leon Edwards. And by the way, I'm not complaining, okay? But just think of the matchups that are in this card. Then you have the 125 matchup for the championship. Then you have Paddy Pimblett taking on Tony Ferguson, who, by the way, is compelling in and of itself because he's on a 5-fight losing streak. Paddy, we don't really know much about. We have a real perfect 50-50 fight in a way that doesn't seem as 50-50 with how it may projectedly to end in ways that would be bad for, let's say, Tony Ferguson. Right? In other words, like right now, we're looking at it on paper. Yeah, it looks like a straight 50-50 fight because of Paddy's last performance. We don't really know much about him. They both have great jiu-jitsu. They both have, well, very sloppy stand-up. And on top of that, one guy is the older guy. The other guy is the vet. So we're going to see where both of these guys rank amongst everybody else in the world. So it's very compelling. But guess what? You're not worried about that. You're worried about what's going on with Ian Garry. So I'm going to tell you like this, right? Again, not the type of guy that I would choose to hang out with. Okay, but again, not everyone is everyone's cup of tea, and that's perfectly fine. But I tell you what, as a fighter, my goodness, he is absolutely amazing. Crisp, striking, knows how to use his length, knows how to use his size, knows how to use his speed, and not only that, has absolutely great footwork that I think is going to be hard for a lot of people to catch up with in terms of, let's say, counter-striking or range fighting. And then on top of that, having to deal with, let's say, jabs, front kicks, and head kicks that he can throw at any time at rapid speeds. He's very good, and then he's got a very evolving wrestling and grappling game to go along with it. On top of that, he trains with some of the best guys in the world. He continues to go after really good gyms, such as Renegade. Obviously, he got kicked out of that. He got kicked out of the PI because of the little mishaps he had going on with Sean Strickland and the security issue that they had going on. But nonetheless, you got to understand, he doesn't care what you think. And quite frankly, the bottom line about that is this is the perfect attitude that you need in order to be a world champion, whether you like it or not. Now, again, this is not about whether I think that, let's say, he's one of my favorite 170 fighters or not. It's not about that. In fact, I don't really have a favorite fighter. I just think that it's such a great sport for you to learn from every single one of these guys and what they can offer you in terms of the type of different skills and variety that you can learn from with the techniques and just the overall diversity of skills and roster that the UFC has and MMA from around the world, right? That's what I'm in it for, is being able to see what works in a street fight, what works in competition, what works in self-defense. And Ian Garry is definitely that guy that you can learn from when it comes to great striking. But not only that, look, you have to be objective and admit this is the type of guy that has the mentality in what it takes to be a champion. And you may not like it, and a lot of people are not going to like it. It's not going to be everyone's cup of tea. But again, fighting is not about your feelings. And I think that's one of the most important things that a lot of people have to truly understand, is that your feelings do not matter in fighting. And that goes for, let's say, if you train with a team and what your coach tells you. Let's say if they tell you, well, you're not doing it right, you should be doing it this way. I think there's a merit in that aspect that you should listen to. Also, I think there is an aspect of, let's say, MMA content creating, right? Let's say if you do prediction shows, sometimes you're going to pick guys that you may not like, but based on the fact that you know they have that particular skill set, that particular style to dominate whatever opponent is going to be presented in front of them. And in this particular, Ian Garry, I think he's going to tear apart Vicente Luque. And not only that, I think that he is going to get on the mic and know exactly what he is going to say, how he's going to say it, and what he's going to convey to the world in terms of his intentions in his career moving forward. And quite frankly, that's all that you can really ask for in real champions that exist in this sport. And whether you like it or not, once again, he has all that it takes to have the mindset of a champion. The problem is, does he have the style to keep up with these guys that are the current champions of the world right now? And that remains to be seen. Don't forget to like and subscribe.